Back with us on the SportsMax Zone. It's time for cricket. The two-match test series between the Windies and the Sri Lanka in Antigua and Barbuda, or the recent one, has broken the sequence of test series, ending in a positive result. That 0-0 draw between the teams marks the first time since 2015 that a test series was ending in a stalemate. The Windies, though, can take several positives from the two games, as there were notable performances from a few individuals. In the second test, Captain Craig Brathwaite batted a total of 813 minutes, equivalent to 13 hours and 33 minutes, the most by a West Indian in a test match. Yes, even Shiv can't stand against Craig Brathwaite. Also, the 507 balls faced by the skipper in that second test is the joint most by a West Indian since one BC Lara reclaimed the world record with 400 not out. Brathwaite also features prominently in the batting statistics. He topped the run scoring chart for the Windies with 237 at an average of 59.25, second overall. Now, as a whole, the West Indian batsmen did fairly well, with 5 of them, Brathwaite, Nkrumah Bonner, Kyle Mayers, Jason Holder and Rakeem Cornwall, all averaging over 50. It was the first time since 2012 the Windies batsmen are achieving this, and only the second time since 1995. Commenting on the team's batting, this is what Phil Simmons said. Everybody is looking to occupy the crease. People are working to bat for long periods, and our depth goes deeper because Alzarri Joseph and Rakeem Cornwall have shown within the last 3 series they can bat and they can provide the 50 to 100 run partnership that later down can take us to 350 to 400. So, joining us to talk about the series and the key numbers coming out and the performance of some individuals, Fazeer Mohammed joins us once again. Good afternoon, Fazeer.
Good afternoon, George. Good to be on the show.
All right. Let's look at the batting numbers. If we can get that batting list once again, that is headed by a Sri Lankan, Craig Brathwaite at 2. And as you heard me say, Fazeer, a handful of West Indies batsmen, 5 of them, with averages of over 50 in the 2 test series. What, if not conclusions, what positives can we draw from those numbers?
Well, I think it's sort of self-explanatory that for a lot of these players, they are moving in the right direction. I think Nkrumah Bonner continues to impress, and you really have to admire his dedication, his commitment. You've got, of course, Craig Brathwaite, of whom you spoke, and we all know what Craig Brathwaite will give you. And then you've got Kyle Mayers, who I think is really revealing himself to be the type of player, positive. You can't relax as a bowling team. When he's at the crease, he'll give you the chance here and there. That's the way he plays. But still, he's producing runs. And also, he's got the extra string in his bow of picking up wickets. And that's an important element as well. So when you look at the top 5, you've got 3 players there who are pretty much settled. And then, as Phil Simmons mentioned, you've got a pretty strong lower order. Rakeem Cornwall coming good. You've got Jason Holder getting runs. You've got Alzarri Joseph. You've got Joshua De Silva as a wicketkeeper batsman as well. So there's a pretty solid look to the batting lineup against the opponents that the West Indies have been facing within the last few months, Bangladesh and now Sri Lanka. Let's wait and see what happens when you've got the likes of South Africa, then Australia, then Pakistan, to see if they can produce or even improve on these levels of consistency.
And there you go. You need no help to be cast as curmudgeonly in your analysis of the West Indies, Fazeer. But I'm going to throw this one at you. And you hinted at it in the last part of your answer. It's good that we saw those 2 test matches. We could see every ball faced by these batsmen. Did anybody, set aside Craig Brathwaite because he's a proven campaigner. Whatever he's proven, he's proven. Set him aside. The other 4, did those batsmen, based on how they made their runs, based on the quality of the opposition, did they strike you as having the capacity to make good runs against the very best teams and the very best bowlers?
All right, well, let's deal with those who really haven't performed well. And I touched on it when we were commenting at the end of the 4th day of the second test match, the Thursday before the Easter weekend. I suggested that John Campbell would have played his last test match for some time because his numbers are ordinary. The manner in which he gets dismissed is repetitive. You've got Jermaine Blackwood averaging 10.5 in 2 test matches. And yes, he's had a good couple of series and he's seen as a key man now. He's vice captain and so on. But I don't think that the West Indies want to start going down the road of rewarding loyalty to the extent where you ignore ordinary performances, mediocre performances, and don't look at those who are waiting in the wings. And that's why I've identified John Campbell and Jermaine Blackwood for the drop going into the next series against South Africa, more than likely. If you're asking me who are the options, well, I think there are 4 options. You've got Darren Bravo, you've got Shea Hope, you've got Shamar Brooks, and you've got Roston Chase. As to the others, Kyle Mayers, I think, not that I think, we see it, there's a vulnerability outside the off stump. The opponents are going to work on that constantly, round the wicket, over the wicket, left arm, right arm. They're going to be working at it, thinking that his aggression, yes, is going to be disconcerting, but they're going to get him that way sooner or later. And Krumah is a different sort of individual. He seems to be in his own world, very focused, very determined, but again, vulnerable. Everyone is vulnerable at the start, and they're going to be looking at that. But if I were to identify 2 players in the batting order whose positions are open to question, they would be John Campbell and Jermaine Blackwood.
Definitely, Faz. Before we continue talking about the batting, we want to move across to the bowling. And, personally, I felt as if our bowlers had done, if they were a bit stronger, the result would have been different. What's your evaluation of the bowling aspect of the team?
We can look at it both ways, Mariah, because in the first test match, Sri Lanka could argue that had things gone their way on the final day, they would have been 1-0 up. And of course, the roles were reversed in the second test match. And you could argue if Joshua De Silva had taken that early catch down the leg side of Shannon Gabriel's bowling, Tirimana gone early, that could have created a bit of anxiety. Yes, they were flat pitches, and we've heard both teams comment on that. But we've seen the West Indies previously watch opponents bat for 2 days, and then they get bundled out twice in the next 2 days and lose by an innings with a day to play when everyone would have been commenting about the featherbed of a pitch. So yes, there is growth. But when it comes to the bowling, Shannon Gabriel clearly was short of work. And it's something that his fellow fast bowler, Tony Gray, fellow Trinidadian, former West Indies fast bowler, former chairman of selectors in Trinidad and Tobago, has just suggested they need to find ways that players like Gabriel are fit and ready and raring before the first ball of a test match and don't have to work into their fitness through one test match and then into a second. We can't afford those luxuries. But I think the bowling lineup has a pretty settled look to it with Gabriel, Alzari Joseph, the experience of Akimar Roach, Rakeem Cornwall. You've got Jamel Warrican waiting in the wings. Maybe consideration for Veerasamy Pramod.
Yeah.
The disappointment will be that maybe we don't have any first-class cricket this season for them to press their claims. But I think the bowling looks pretty settled right now.
Well, Faz, you stay with us. You've already started dropping the players. We're going to head to break, and we're reminding our viewers of our WhatsApp question. Were you satisfied with the West Indies' performance during the series against Sri Lanka? Of course, we want to hear from you. That number 876-564-7661. We'll be back.
Back with us on the SportsMax Zone, we continue with cricket and a review of the recent 2-test series between the Windies and Sri Lanka. International cricket commentator Fazeer Mohammed is still with us. Now, that 0-0 result means the Windies have, for the first time since 2013, gone 3 or more tests without defeat. And for the first time in a long time, there is competition for places in the West Indies 11. Roston Chase, Darren Bravo, Shamar Brooks and Jamel Warrican were all overlooked for the just concluded series. And if we base it on the 4 tests against Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, the question emerges, should those guys continue to wait? Here's what our panel thinks the next West Indies Test 11 should look like. So I'm leaving out Gabriel from the team that played. I should have also put John Campbell in that list, but it's fine. I bring in Shamara Holder and a batsman. Mariah is dropping Campbell and Blackwood and bringing in Hope and Bravo from the cold. It's obvious Lance would have found a way to get Hetmeyer back in, even if that meant dropping Craig Brathwaite.
And George, even if it meant fixing the fitness test.
And even if it meant playing with 12 players. Campbell and Blackwood are gone, according to Fazeer. That's not news. He's been saying that for a while now. And he says Shea Hope or Shamar Brooks or D Bravo or Chase. He wants 2 of that 4 to get in. Before I go to Fazeer and before Mariah comments on this, I want to put Lance under the pressure.
Yes.
Lance, why, with all of the players available, with all of the evidence available from Bangladesh to know,
Yes.
when, apart from John Campbell, I can't see you pointing at any batsman and say you have done something wrong to lose your place.
Yes.
Why are you seeking to shoehorn Mr. Hetmeyer in this Test 11?
I think Hetmeyer has a lot of talent. I think he's underperforming significantly. We have a couple of months before the next Test assignment. I believe that the Aussies and their bowling attack will be tremendously pressuring for a batsman. They have the number one bowler in the world, Pat Cummins. They have Mitch Starc and Josh Hazlewood. I don't see Campbell's technical deficiencies surviving against that. I think Hetmeyer has more tools to do well. I know he hasn't been opening a lot, but he has experience as an opener. And everyone knows how much I rate Hetmeyer. And I believe because of Campbell's struggles, I think Hetmeyer is an option to go to the top of the order with Craig Brathwaite. Not too happy as Fazeer is with Jermaine Blackwood's returns either, but he has been the vice captain for the last series or two. And I put Roston Chase in the squad to put some pressure on him. And I think Jermaine Blackwood's position is a bit tenuous. But Campbell, for me, is struggling.
Mariah, Lance is opening with Hetmeyer.
Lance is just being emotional, and he doesn't strike me as an emotional person,
No, I'm
George.
not
When
emotional.
he selects, Lance, you are overlooking Shea Hope, somebody who we saw, his issue is form. And I'm not saying that he has gotten form in Test cricket, but we saw a lot out of him in ODI cricket. So I find it, I don't even know you anymore.
Well, Shea Hope's Test figures have been horrible, and I know that he can bat, but his Test returns have been so poor, and there's been no red ball cricket for him to reverse his statistics. So for me, although I think he's a technically solid batsman,
You pick Hetmeyer over Shea Hope.
Yeah, I think Hetmeyer. Yeah.
Fazeer, you don't have him in your mix of the four batsmen you are picking among to come into the 11. But Lance Whitaker has S. Hetmeyer in his lineup at the head of proceedings. What say you about that?
I will say Lance is Lance. I mean, he obviously is sold on Shimron Hetmeyer. Fine, because you will always find, and there's nothing wrong with that you hook on to a particular player. I mean, Bajans have been in love with Carl Hooper, and he hasn't stopped playing. He stopped playing about 20 years ago, and they still talk about King Carl, who will give you a beautiful, elegant 20 or an elegant 35, and that's all they will talk about while someone scores a double. It's just the nature of sport, and I think this is the beauty of sport, that we can be attracted to particular players. We love the way they play. We love the style, we love the personality, we love the smile and so on. But at some point, you've got to look beyond those elements and look at performance as well.
Yeah,
and so go ahead, Lance.
Yeah, Faz, just before you brush over my suggestion, what are your thoughts about Hetmeyer's red ball future?
Well, I think Shimron Hetmeyer has to decide what does he want from his game.
Yes.
In the same way that we asked that of Nicholas Pooran and so many others. What does he want? Does he prioritize playing Test cricket for the West Indies? If he does, he has a lot of work to do because he's technically deficient. He has a lot of shots. But Test cricket isn't so much about shot making, but about batting and all of the different elements that constitute batsmanship. So I'm not writing off Shimron Hetmeyer by any stretch of the imagination, but his body language suggests to me that he is yet to come to terms with what he wants to be as a batsman.
Am I correct in hearing you say, Fazeer, in evaluating Hetmeyer, when you talk about the distinction between batting and shot making? Almost a situation of boxing. We have men who are boxers and men who are punchers.
Yeah.
And the puncher won't survive against a good boxer. And the boxer may have difficulties contacting with someone who could throw one, get lucky, and connect with a glass jaw, and he's down.
Absolutely correct, and that is the essence of what you want to see in a Test cricket type batsman. Yes, you will have the type who will beat the ball, beat the cover of the ball, give you a quick 30, 40. But when you look at Test cricket in its entirety, scoring a quick fire 30, 40, or even a 50 doesn't win you too many Test matches, doesn't save you too many Test matches. Even the great Brian Lara was criticized in some eyes unfairly for getting 100 against Australia in Antigua in 1999. Remember, after the double and the 153 not out, he got 100 on the first day in Antigua, and he was criticized for scoring too quickly because the West Indies were all out by the end of day one. Australia could set their way about things and build their way towards victory. So that's the peculiarity of Test cricket. It's not just about the numbers, but the occupying time, about wearing down the opposition, building partnerships. There are so many elements to batsmanship, especially in Test cricket, that is not just simply about the flashy shots.
Yeah, last thing before we go, Faz, some people won't like us saying it, but it is what it is. Is there something in Phil Simmons and the coaching staff being able to get something more out of the West Indies at Test level if we were to go by the last two Test series? Because there is a sense, not necessarily that there is, but there is a sense of greater stability at the helm of West Indies cricket, at the level of the administration, the presidency, the board, everything. There's a stability there, and there's a throughput from that stability through to the team, as there always is, but in this case it's positive, and that has helped to settle things at that level to the extent that Simmons and the company have been able to work in a perhaps better environment and get more results, more out of players who've been over the years infuriatingly inconsistent.
Absolutely, and let's not forget that in July of last year, we were lamenting how this team could lose two Test matches with rain falling and lose so badly in England after winning the first Test. Then go on to New Zealand and wonder why did they even bother to turn up the way that they were playing those two Test matches, and Phil Simmons was there. But it's a process. I think more than anything else, what Phil Simmons brings is not just stability, but someone who's seen it all before, who has tangled and wrangled with the administration, has paid the price and has come back even harder because it means a lot to him to play for the West Indies. And I get the impression, again, I'm nowhere close to the action at all, but I get the impression that Phil Simmons is sending the message: if you are ready to play for the West Indies, I am here for you. If you are ready to skylark and fool around and take this privilege for granted, find something else to do.
Thank you very much, Fazeer. All the best to you.
No problem at all.
Good.